Well, welcome. Tonight, a topic that drew a lot of attention when we had the last update for the Milford Medical Center. I mean, if I ever call it the Little Red Hospital again, everybody cringes, but it's grown into so much more. And anybody who lives in Milford knows how important the services and everything that's offered by the Regional Medical Center. And we have a couple people that are setting the vision and the course. So why don't we start with introductions?
Hi, Al. Ed Kelly. I'm the system president and CEO.
Hi, Al. How are you? I'm Phil Ciarmacoli. I'm president of Tri-County Medical, and Tri-County Medical is the group practice, the physician practice that's part of the hospital system.
Now, one of the things you've talked about, Ed, is how important Tri-County as an organization, and Uncle Phil has been to growing the services. I don't think people understand that there's three parts to the medical center.
Sure. Right.
Why don't you explain how it's set up?
Sure. So we do talk about us as a system, and that's really important. But the system is broken down into three parts. The hospital, which serves as the traditional hospital, but it's also the parent organization for two very important organizations. One is Tri-County Medical Associates, which is a vehicle for employing physicians and really has been the key to bringing physicians to Milford Regional over the last couple of decades. And then the other organization is also important, which is our foundation, which does fundraising and has been so instrumental in terms of its mission recently towards the Me and Family Pavilion.
VP Emily is just taking over and doing great.
That's right. Yep. Emily Quinn is our new vice president for the foundation and is doing a great job.
It was funny because I stepped, when you announced that Marty had left, we were at the, I can't remember what board meeting it was maybe it was foundation, and I looked, I said, well, Emily, are you going to be VP Emily now? And her face got real quiet. I had no idea. I just joked with her, and then I was so happy when she got the position.
It was just a natural transition, and so she had worked at the hospital here for a while, really knew the community, and just
followed her mother, and
the feedback from the community, the folks that know her. So it was a natural transition for us.
Now, we'll let Phil explain what Tri-County is, but I understand he's slacking off. There are 2 or 3 physicians in the area that don't work for Tri-County.
Yeah, we reduced that. I was here about a year ago, and I think there was 3. Now there's only 2.
Okay.
We are making some changes, but yeah, I mean the group practice, as Ed mentioned, was formed like 20 years ago. Actually, 1992.
Phil, why?
Because physicians were graduating from residency programs, and they didn't want to go out and borrow $500,000 to buy leases, to buy equipment, to fund employees, to finance their receivables, and to do administration. So, the model that was evolving at the time, and we were really ahead of the curve on that, is that physicians wanted to be employed. Physicians wanted to see patients, practice medicine, and not do administration.
And that's what I keep hearing from all the physicians that have come on the show. They spent half their life in school for the love or the passion of patient care.
Yeah.
And if they don't join an organization like Tri-County, a huge part of their time gets pulled into admin.
Yeah, and that's why I said a few moments ago, jokingly, I mean, there's probably only 2 or 3 primary care physicians in private practice today, and that number is continually shrinking. I mean, docs, I don't think, there's very few physicians coming out of residency programs who start in a private practice and, do all the things I just mentioned, so.
Well, and again, when you spend that much of your time, of your life, I mean, I always laugh by the time they're done with their specialties and all, I joke with friends of mine saying, are you ready to retire? And then you turn around and say, for them to get started,
yeah,
it's just an amazing amount of cash that they need.
Yeah.
Right. Al, it might be important to point out as well, when Tri-County was first started, it was really a minority practice in terms of numbers. We had a number of private practitioners that were in private practice. We also had and continue to have 2 other important primary care groups at the hospital. A UMass group called Tri-River in Uxbridge, and a really strategically important group that was really instrumental in helping with the teaching programs and connection to UMass. and then Reliant Medical Group, which has been known as the Fallon Clinic over the years. So in the beginning, there was a lot of sensitivity to Tri-County, and again, working collaboratively with the rest of the medical staff. I think that really continues to be the case today, because Tri-County is the largest group now. And again, Tri-River has been a very stable and important group in Uxbridge, and then in Reliant is there today. So again, I think, as Phil has mentioned, physicians really want to be employed today. They don't want to enter the business world, which is what physicians did years ago. And it's more complex today in terms of you have to buy electronic medical records, and just the startup cost would be astronomical. So again, we feel fortunate. In the beginning, we were in the minority, as Phil mentioned, in terms of hospital systems going out and employing physicians. And as it turns out, it was one of the strategic things.
But you took a
that we
chance back then, because you think about it, there weren't many organizations that could offer this.
It was a big risk. It's funny. I was on the board. How I came to the hospital system, Al. I started. I was in the community, as you know, and I became a member of the audit committee, and I was a corporator and a member of the finance committee, and then I eventually was on the board of trustees, and then I became chairman of the board of Tri-County Medical, and we were much smaller back then. But we had tremendous deficits, and there was a lot of pressure at one point in time to basically say, hey, do we really need this physician group? It is costing us way too much money. And to Ed's credit and to Frank Saber's credit, they stayed the course and hung in there. But we were chewing up some financial capital when we initially started the physician group, and because it was new.
Well, I mean, think about it. What you just described, you're going to go to then CFO, Mr. Ed, and say, all I need is a few $1 million, and I'll hire a couple physicians, and we'll only lose a few million, right? Out of this small medical center, but we'll set cutting edge practices, and we'll be able to hire the best talent, and we'll be able to offer services that nobody else can. But Ed, all I need is a few $1 million.
It was even more basic than that, though, Al. When I first came to Milford, and it's really hard to believe this, we didn't have an HMO Blue contract at the hospital. We didn't have a Tufts contract. Harvard and Pilgrim were separate. We didn't have a Harvard contract. So we had Pilgrim and Central Mass Health. So we didn't have, the health insurance companies were sort of taking better deals to leave us out, and it had to do really with the physician base. So really, if it was hiring primary care physicians, and fortunately, most of them wanted to stay in Milford, and we got a lot of the chief residents and really the cream of the crop. But it was really the hiring of those physicians, because it's physicians that really are, if you think about managed care books, if you open your plan, you don't pick hospitals, you pick your physicians.
Sure.
And that was really where we were deficient. And so really, I'd like to say it was brilliance, but it was really more necessity. If we, to have a hospital, you have to have physicians, and so it turned out to be great.
I know the two of you are being humble, but when you think about it, it's a heck of a risk.
Yeah.
To set up that kind of organization and, like you say, bleed, a lot of money for a long time. I mean, it takes some intestinal fortitude to be able to say, okay, we'll stay the course. Because I can't imagine the board members were all excited about how much is this guy Phil burning?
Yes, no, there was conversations to that effect.
We sent him from the board to what? Spend how much money?
But it's, again, it's and then it just built upon itself. Once we got a critical mass, Al, we would be able to recruit more physicians, more chief residents. And then, one of the things when you look at a physician group, and you can't really isolate them in terms of the financial performance, as Ed obviously knows, but it's downstream revenue that's very important, which is, ancillaries, referrals to the hospital, admissions, ED, and so forth. So the big piece of the physician component is really the downstream revenue. So.
Well, when you think about it, though, you control the feeder system.
Yeah.
You got How many docs now?
We got 100, we're over 100.
You're over 100? Because it was
Yeah.
like 97
Yeah,
the
no,
last time
yeah,
you came on.
We're over 100.
So you got over 100 physicians feeding into the hospital.
Right.
That's just got to be strategically brilliant.
Yeah, and the other thing that's helpful is that we're able to attract specialists, because a specialist who would come into the community is going to realize that they have a built-in referral base.
They got
and
100 people that are
and
going
a
to refer
primary
to
care
them.
base. Yeah, so it's worked out.
Yeah, so once you get started, it just feeds on
Yeah,
itself.
Right. So it's been good.
Now, we got a new ER. Same conversations at the board? How much did you spend?
You know, it seems like in my 24 years we've been just building since we've been here, and again, it's always been it's always a balance that you're trying to bring in facilities and equipment, and you need good staff, and it's about taking care of patients. And you know, we went through the Hill building to the surgical building to the cancer center, and this was just one more step.
Ed, when the Hill building came out, locals just looked and said, "Oh my God, what are you building here?"
Yeah.
You know, another man's greatest hospital?
Yeah.
They'll never fill the Hill building.
Right.
And then didn't we say the same thing about Dana-Farber?
We did, and actually when we built the med-surg floor, it was called Tuteli at the time, now it's called Consigli. We just said, we're done, and you know, a few years later, we're building.
And here we are with the new ER.
Yeah. So it's an interesting discussion, and I've said it in a lot of forums, but I think we're always thinking, what's the next step? And so after the cancer center, and it was getting busier, we said, you know, what are the priorities? And we organized what was called the charrette process, and so we had 3 priorities. You know, we had an undersized ED. We needed a new ICU in terms of the size of the rooms, and we had 3 and 4 bed patient rooms on our 4th floor. So we said, which of those 3 will be next? And we went through a number of different exercises to figure out, you know, could we do 1 or 2 of them in one place? Could we, you know, kind of make a plan and phase into it over a number of years? And one of the options was, what would it take to do all of them? And in hospitals, there's a tendency to try to build new, because, you know, whether it's an OR or an ED or an ICU, it's hard to renovate and keep it going. So there's a tendency to build new and keep it isolated and then move into it. So that was one of the options. And really, the first time it came out, everybody laughed. Said, "Wow, that's
$50 million.
And we, you know, in terms of our fundraising, we had never raised really more than $10 million over a number of years. And then in terms of our financing capacity, we probably, you know, didn't think that we'd have much more than another $10 million. And so really, for a long time was which of these projects. And as you know, there's a lot of jockeying. If you build a new ED, it's great, but if a patient's just going to sit in the ED, you can't move them upstairs. And it was really a struggle of which one.
Well, it had to be an emotional thing. $50 million. I mean, Phil, when we grew up, you could have bought Milford for $50 million. They would have thrown in Hopedale. You know, I mean, it's just amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And actually, no surprise, you know, we had a very engaged building committee. A local Vascan Bojijan was the chair.
Go Bogey.
And very dedicated trustees, medical staff on the group. Greg Burrow, John Burns, Kevin Meehan on the board, and a number of physicians, Dr. Hopkins from the ED, Dr. Curley. And, you know, Kevin, you know, who has the vision, and he's really helped advise us, kept encouraging us to think big. And, you know, we were thinking big, but we were also thinking practically. Because on one hand, we just didn't want to put ourselves out of business by building something that was too big. And of course, you read all these things about less hospital, like we want less health care, less cost, and how does it add up? And and we actually went out and talked to a number of other hospitals. And you know, when you go out, just like if someone came to us now, no one came back to us and said we built an ED that was too big,
Right.
Because you just kind of grow into it. I think the other important factor that was in the back of my mind was, you know, healthcare reform is in part about healthcare is too expensive. But one of the things is, particularly in Massachusetts, we have way too much care in tertiary hospitals, the high-level hospitals. So literally some services, comparing what it costs to do at Milford versus in Boston or Worcester, 10 times more. And you know, the incentives are not in the healthcare, in managed care, you know, plans to account for that. And over time, that really needs to take place. But anyway, back to the building, we were really, you know, thinking big, thinking practically, and again, it was a process to get to where we ended up with. And again, Kevin stepping up with a $5 million, you know, donation really set momentum in place that, you know, brought other donors in. And really, it was the community support that helped make the financing run, because, you know, the financing world, they have their own objective and subjective factors, and certainly a community coming forward with you know, funding half the building was
Well, $20 million.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it was like Uncle Phil coming up to me, grabbing my arm, saying, "Okay, how much can you give? Not enough. Need a little more."
That
Yeah.
works, you know.
It worked. You got it out of me. But you know, when you look at it, I was so impressed when I look at the demographics that the staff stepped up. I was amazed at how much they put in. The I mean, you go down the whole
No,
list.
it was a good. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that was very exciting for us as well to get people, donors from all levels and employees, you know, just regular kind of folks.
The $10, $20 from grandma who you know is living on $1,200 a month,
and that
but
adds
she
up.
wanted to chip in.
And that adds up, Al. So yeah, it was a great project, really.
So now I know that you've kind of taken the stick and beat your back with it. Well, we projected 10% and we only got 5 the first
6.
6. The first. But I sat there and I said, dang, 6% growth?
Yeah.
That seems pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I know you, Ed, I heard you say, well, we wanted 10. Yeah, okay, but wow, that's a large number of people.
and there were other things happened. You know, the reimbursement world is changing in healthcare, so it was multifaceted. But you know, we had just been used to every time we opened a new addition, you know, being kind of overrun with additional volume.
I think you were overrun 6%.
Yeah.
Or at least overwalked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6% was good growth. Yeah, that was good. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I bet you there's a whole bunch of other community hospitals that would be happy to trade places with you.
Yes. Yeah. So, and just to fast forward to this, you know, the start of this fiscal year that we're in, we've been really, we've seen incredible volume, not only at the hospital level, the ED level, really throughout the whole hospital, really at times, believe it or not, being at capacity. But I think it's really important to point out that when we were struggling last year, it was really the whole team that stepped up to make a difference. A big part of that was the medical staff, and particularly Tri-County, the primary care physicians really chipped in and said, hey, you know, the good news is we've always had patients that want into Milford. We had capacity issues. We had them not only just in the ED, but we had provider issues. And I think recognizing that with Phil's direction, the Tri-County physicians opening their panels and then making a commitment to urgent care you know, when we look back, this level of volume a couple years ago, we didn't have the physicians, we didn't have the facilities. So
Well,
it's really
I recently ran in
Yeah,
because my darling bride had an allergic reaction. It was such a different experience going into the new Taj Mahal Hopkins from the old one. You know, all of a sudden, there's an open
I'm going to
area.
use that. We're going to use that.
He got mad at me when he said, "Don't call it that." I said, but you walked in,
Yeah.
and it was just an open, welcoming feeling into a room. I mean, how many times in the past we got, you know, and I know the quality of care, Jeff and his staff would never let the quality suffer.
Yeah.
But it felt a lot nicer to be in a room than to have a Jeff or Jim saying, you're okay, but you're going to sit out in the hall for a while.
right.
You know, Al, let me just pick up on something that Ed said. I mean, you know, a number of our physicians had what is called closed panels, meaning they weren't accepting new patients. And a number of them opened their panels this fall because, you know, we did have access issues. And And that worked out. That worked out very well. So I just
I
want to
remember
take a moment to thank
my daughter finally
number of our physicians
got
for
thrown
doing that.
out of her pediatric providers. They said, you're
Was
20.
she 30 or what?
She's 26.
Okay. I was
And they
kidding.
finally said, we can't keep seeing you. You're
Yeah.
no longer a ped. But you couldn't find an OBGYN.
Yeah, she could find an OBGYN, really?
It was you that pointed out.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for one of your providers opening,
Yeah.
because they had said she's closed practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, where do we go?
and we continue to add physicians, Al. I mean, our whole philosophy has been growth, and we've had, as Ed just talked about, some financial difficulty, but we really haven't changed our focus. Our focus is to continue to
the
grow.
people that you're picking up. I mean, I'm totally pleased because we just went through, the insurance shock
Yeah.
of, okay, now that you've changed companies, here are the physicians that you can go to.
Yep.
And the physician I've been going to for the last 18 years is now banished, not a Tri-County.
Yeah.
And you pointed me to David Carlson.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Nice Holy Cross boy.
Yeah.
So he already starts with a point in his favor.
I've had to give Dave a supplement in his comp just for taking you on.
Well, I mean, all of a sudden now, it's like you put your toe in the water. I'll go see this guy and see if I really, I'll take a chance with me.
Yeah.
But my daughters,
Yeah.
my darling bride, my sainted mother. But after the first visit, now he's got everybody.
Yeah, and he is a Holy Cross guy.
And he is a Holy Cross guy. So,
but we're expanding in Hopkinton. We have Dave and Stacy Bieberman, and Dave's been with us a year and a half. Stacy less than a year. Okay, we are going to add 2 more med-peds physicians. Med-peds physicians are boarded in internal medicine and pediatrics, so it's a 4-year residency versus a 3. And
they're closer to retirement when they get out.
yes, and just as an aside, my roommate in college is an ICU doc, and I was working for 10 years before he got a paycheck. So we have 2 more residents joining that group in this summer. So we'll have 4 docs there.
But Phil, it's amazing because at first, if you'd tell me I was going to go for medical care in Hopkinton, I would have looked and said, no, that's outside the center of the universe. I'm not driving all the way to Hopkinton.
There's not many people who would get that. You and I might.
There are 28,000 people who know Milford is the
Yeah.
center of the universe.
Yeah.
There's 6 billion that need to be educated. So someday we'll get there. But when you think about it, it's really not that much farther for me to drive to the new building in Hopkinton.
Well, where we live in that section of Milford, it might be closer.
It probably is.
You
But
just go
even
down South Street and you're there. Yeah.
jump on South, you're right there. So, all of a sudden, that was an option.
Yeah.
And especially such a great practice. And now in the new building,
Yeah, we also have urgent care there too.
that's what I say, the new building downstairs,
Yeah.
when I had to go see vampires, he sent me downstairs to be bled. But it was easy. I walked down, there I was. They had the woman come in, she harpooned me, and I was done.
El, you are colorful, I have to say. But let me.
Now,
But
here's
the
the-
urgent care. Let me tell you about Dave
I was gonna ask you,
Carlson. Med-Peds is moving upstairs above the 110 grill, so because because now we have 4 docs in that space, and then all of where Dave Carlson currently is going to be urgent care.
Now, you build this emergency room.
Yeah.
You spend all this money.
Yeah.
And then you immediately set up 2 competitors to it? Help me understand, because a lot of people are saying, why would you build an urgent care facility, I won't say 100 yards, but half a mile down the street, and in Hopkinton, that'll compete with the emergency room?
We were a little slow into the urgent care market because they were opening up. And believe it or not, urgent care, it's just a trend. People want to go when they want to go, not if you had an opening in the physician office at 9, but they want to go at 11. That's when they want to go. And so it was really, I think one of the things with our medical staff was the recognition that, hey, seeing your own physician is better, but consumers today, the new generations, that's what they want to see. So in many ways, frankly, it competes a little bit more with physician offices. I mean,
Yeah.
and it may compete a little bit with emergency cares, but it's more physician offices. Again, I think from a pure medical standpoint, you're better off to see your own physician, but I think we wanted to keep up with what our community wanted. And so I think what's really happened, it's taken away a little bit from the ED, but again, frankly, a lot of that has to do with off-shift hours, business that doesn't belong in the ED. And believe it or not, we want patients to go to the right setting. We don't want patients to go to the ED that don't belong there. If they belong in a physician office, they belong in a physician office. So urgent care fits that need, and it's helped to open capacity. So some urgent care visits the physicians might have seen previously are going to urgent care. So it does free up capacity for new patients.
Go ahead.
It's not, it's, you know, the acuity in the ED is very high, okay? So they're not seeing, you know, the sinus infections and, you know, the strep throat and the earaches and, you know, and so I don't think we've really hurt the ED with urgent care. As Ed mentioned, yeah, you might have, you know, the primary care base, because every primary care doc would reserve, you know, 4 to 6, 8, 10 acute slots for same-day kind of visits. Well, that, you have some slippage there, but with those slots, we're able to see new patients versus
Well, now
sick
they
visits.
may only have to put 2 in there and
Yeah.
actually.
And then we have 4 other slots, okay? So that's worked out very well. But we're going to continue. I think urgent care is you know, a low-cost service. You know, it's convenient, and our numbers actually, Al, have been very good. And, you know, we're currently seeing, you know, on average, you know, Hopkinton's been open since October, okay? And, you know, we're seeing 25, 30 patients a day, which is very good. We opened Northbridge, in our new Northbridge facility. Now we have urgent care there. We opened that in January. On Monday in Northbridge, we saw 37 patients.
See, that's amazing, because when you think of the ramp-up that most urgent care facilities go through,
Yeah,
you're 6 months ahead.
Yeah, we're really kind of excited. I mean, patients want convenience. They really like it. We have, you know, lab and X-ray in both our urgent care facilities, so you can get an X-ray, you can get lab. So
I think the other important point is it's a tri-county site, so it's a tri-county record. So your records at those sites are readily available, and that's
so like if you were to go to urgent care, they could pull up your record, same
Right.
EMR, obviously.
Yeah.
And then we're going to open urgent care right over here.
But see, when I looked at urgent care,
Yeah.
I see, number one, it fits more into, I know it's horrible to say, but a millennial lifestyle. I mean, we're becoming worse and worse at patience.
Yep.
If I want to have something, I want instant gratification.
Yep.
And I don't want to call my physician if I don't work or live near Milford and have him say, yeah, come in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I got to take an afternoon off. So I can blow into the urgent care, and I think, what's it, like 40 minutes average in and out?
Yeah, I mean, it can be even less. You know, right now we have a service that you can go online to our website.
Oh, I saw that, and look at what's open.
Yeah, wait times.
Wait time.
Yeah, and so that is kind of a neat service.
Kind of like my Google Maps when I just try and decide which way am I getting home.
Yeah, and right.
So it just fits in, because now I can sit there and say, I'll wait an hour and blow in and out.
But let me just finish. We're going to have urgent care right across the street here, and you know, that's going to be staffed with that some of our current ED physicians, and so we're very excited about that. That's going to open up in March 20th, I believe. Okay, and so that'll be our third urgent care site, and we'll probably do others, but it
But
clearly
now,
makes sense in terms
I
of
want to
the
get into the
continuum
new
of care.
facility here, but also you're helping out the community. Because if I go to the emergency room,
You got
$250.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like $250 deductible.
Yeah.
Gulp. You know, if I go to my physician,
It's 20,
25, 30.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, it's 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night. You know, daughter hurt ankle at soccer field.
Yeah.
Now, let's face it, if it's me or you, we'll wait till tomorrow. But it's your kid, something happened, you're going somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And now it's going to cost me $250 or $500 deductible to go down to see Jeff and for him to say, yeah, put a bandage, you know, wrap it up, it'll be fine. So there's a financial
Yeah.
assistance that you're giving anybody who's thinking about it, so they don't go to the ER.
I mean, our urgent care sites are, 8 to 8 during the week and 9 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday, so.
So when most of the time you're playing soccer and all the sports are Saturday mornings,
Yeah.
so if somebody, does injure themselves or something, they can go to,
And then the other thing is, if we didn't do urgent care,
well, somebody else would.
Someone
The
else.
market wants it.
so market wants, someone else would, so.
But now, my understanding is the facility down at the end of, whatever, South Main, or what are we calling it? Or
Yeah, right over here.
across from Papagino's McDonald's.
Yeah.
That's more than just urgent care.
No, that's just right, that's urgent care.
Or infusion.
There's infusion therapy. But,
I was gonna say.
Yeah, okay.
And the
right.
staff there, I mean, obviously, the thing I worry about
Yeah.
is urgent care. Is that like Kmart of doctors? If I drive down Main Street, I'll drive the extra half mile and pay if I'm getting higher quality physicians in the ER than I am here. But that's not the fact.
No, I mean, all the Hopkinton Northbridge are staffed by, family medicine docs, internists, experienced advanced practitioners. We have 2 providers on every site. Here, I mean, in terms of basic urgent care services, it'll be the same. Infusion will be something added. But the nature of the urgent care service and across the street here will be the same as our other 2
But that's
sites.
whether I drive the end of South Main
Yeah.
or a mile up to the ER, I'm getting same access to records because it's all
Yeah.
the electronic medical records.
Yeah.
The staff is the same, essentially, right?
Yeah, no, you're gonna, it's
Yeah, it's not an emergency
room. I just want to make sure.
The facilities aren't the same.
Same.
Right,
Right.
right.
If I'm in a very bad car accident,
Yep,
I'm not going to go to
Right.
urgent care,
good.
No.
right?
Good.
But if
You're
my
right.
daughter hurts her ankle,
You can go to urgent care.
I can go to urgent
Right.
care. If I need,
Yeah, lacerations,
I've cut myself,
sprains,
anything that's
cough.
not
Yeah,
what we'd normally think of an emergency room.
Right.
yeah.
But even when I go to this, I'm getting the same quality, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Because people worry that, okay, I'm paying $20 deductible versus $500. Am I getting a lot less? And the answer is no.
You're getting, you're getting physicians as well as advanced practitioners who are very well trained. And, we have a physician on every site. There's a physician there as well as an advanced practitioner. Okay.
Now, I read that the trend is for infusion to try and get that out of
Out of the hospital.
the hospital.
And that goes well with urgent care because a lot of urgent care can be later. I mean, it can be first thing in the morning and later in the day. In infusion, this is for only certain types of infusion, so not typically antibiotics, but more chronic infusions. And the payers really want to pay that
Like
outside
chemo?
the hospital.
No,
Not chemo,
not
no.
chemo.
Remicade for
Remicade.
GI, for example,
Yeah.
would be one. Again, we leave it to the medical staff in the payers in terms of what should be done outside the hospital versus inside the hospital. But it's definitely a
But
trend.
once the payers, it's like, when you look at a lot of the prescription drugs,
Yeah.
once they don't want to pay for it anymore, you start seeing them inch up the co-pays.
Yep,
So they're going to force it out of the hospital,
yep.
Yeah.
either on my back, because if I want to go to the hospital, I'll have to pay so much more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
So when somebody says infusion care, what's the typical patient type?
Yeah.
We're not clinical, but there are patients that need that have chronic illnesses that need periodic scheduled infusion. So it's those patients that the payers want to be done at a site like this one. And again, to have the skilled providers that we have there in kind of.
So if I have to
available.
go in every week or every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Yes. And for a certain illness, okay?
for a certain section that's moved,
Yeah.
Right,
I can schedule it there,
right.
$20 copay or whatever my normal copay is versus emergency room.
Right.
We're not doing IV antibiotics yet. Okay, we may down the road.
Well-
okay, but right now it's really specialized chronic
But
infusion.
that's step one.
Yeah.
I mean, without having any data to back it up, if I know anything about medicine, is once the insurance companies see that the level of care is met and they can cut their costs,
Yep. It's also part of health, healthcare being too expensive, is we all kind of have to do our part.
Yeah.
So now,
Patients, believe it or not, actually might find it more convenient. It's off-site, it's quick, quick
It's
drive in
easy
and out.
parking.
It's easy,
oh, I would
Yeah.
much rather,
yeah.
one, from a convenience point of view, but two, when you're going into the emergency room, there's a feeling.
Yeah.
Sure.
The buildings down here seem more like my local physician.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something that we keep reading about. If you go to man's greatest hospital, MGH is supposed to be the be-all, end-all, so they charge 60% more. Isn't it getting kind of old that people are saying, are you really worth that much more?
There's multi-factors in terms of their labor force is a lot more expensive. Their market is just, so we agree. I think the issue is, and I think that they would agree, is that the higher level care should be done there. I think what we're talking about is that it's the same, it's the gallbladder.
Yes.
That, that
My
price
appendix,
differential,
does
yeah.
it really,
Right.
is it really worth
Right.
that much more?
And I think
Yeah.
we're uniquely positioned in this market because we've really been blessed with our what we call our tertiary partners. So we've had this longstanding, excellent relationship with UMass that goes back to the early 90s. It centers around teaching. We have Tri-River. But again, our relationships with UMass are excellent. And we expanded we have residents in emergency medicine and surgery. And then with the Cancer Center, we have relationships with Brigham and Women's and Dana-Farber. It was their first venture outside of their family, really a vote of confidence in our medical staff. And then a few years ago, our relationship with Boston Children's. So the key, in our opinion, is to know that, a lot of your care you can get locally, but when it's not right to be done here, we're going to have this quick transition.
Well, again, you
east or
think
west.
about, my mother, over 10 years ago, she had intestinal cancer. And as she calls her, Dr. Mona took care of her. She would never think that anybody in the world could take better care of her
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
Dr. Mona.
Yeah.
And what made us feel comfortable is, although we're not going to, Binney Street, we're not going to the Farber in town, boy, the oncologists here had access to everything
Right.
that Dana-Farber offers.
Yep.
And I can understand the 3% or 4% that are very, very specialized. Okay, there you have to move, but 97% or whatever can stay in their own hometown?
Yeah. And, we have great oncologists here. Sometimes you need like a subspecialized oncologist, and many of them periodically rotate out here.
Huh?
But then a lot of our patients, and really a number of our employees who have been serviced there, they'll have most of the care done here, and then periodically, once a year, twice a year, they'll go in and they'll say the doctor, and it happens both ways. They could be seen here, and the doctor in Boston picks up, and the three of them, they all talk, or vice versa. They can go into Boston, and they'll pick up the phone, and they'll all be on the same page here. And we've heard that consistently. So that's really what it's all about.
And now, when you say Dana-Farber took a chance, their first venture was into the town of Milford. I just heard, though, that they're throwing you out of their building because business can't be too bad because they're
Right.
expanding.
Well, you're really plugged
Yeah.
in, huh?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Where's he getting all this information? But,
So, again, in our opinion, there's good news, and this, again, believe it or not, really goes back to the planning of the Cancer Center. It was a big addition at the time, so 54,000 square feet. That was our biggest addition at that time. Our new project is 78,000 square feet. But so the two-story, 54,000 square foot building, half the building was taken by Dana-Farber for medical oncology, and then a quarter of the building was taken by the Brigham for radiation oncology, so radiation treatments, which was really something that we didn't have. And then the other quarter of the building was taken by Milford Regional. Actually, it happened to work out because we had some space needs. But we didn't have any written agreement, but long-term we said, hey, if services grow here and they expand, we'll move back. And some of that had already happened, and we still have laboratory, I'll call it backroom laboratory operations over at the Cancer Center. But the radiation center has been incredibly busy. It runs, so the radiation therapy services, that machine runs up to 13 hours a day. It's busy. And
Time for a new toy.
The Brigham has applied for a second unit there, which we had planned. So we're going to physically add the room that the therapy is done in, and we're going to move our other services over there over. So we actually haven't announced that internally, Al. So it's okay. But I mean, people kind of know that that's the plan, and so it's a question of really when. And frankly, it ties into, we've got vacated space. We've got our old ICU, ED, and fourth floor space. So we're in the planning process of trying to figure that out.
But that's got to help you overall if you're moving the lab together, getting all of that.
Moving it back over, yeah.
One central location.
I mean, it's a little bit of luck and skill, but we knew that someday we're going to build a new ED, and the laboratory is next to the old ED. And so it's kind of a natural fit that we could make it happen, and you know, the stars are aligning there. So it'll be good. And again, on one hand, you know, the fact that there's more cancer is not a great thing. But everyone is living older. But for us, again, it gets back to radiation therapy. You need it every day. Do you want to drive a half an hour?
Half hour.
Half hour, yeah.
Yeah.
No, much longer, yeah.
To drive into Boston?
Well, Boston's longer, but if there are other options
Worcester
around this. Right. So again, particularly radiation therapy, you want to have it local. And so it really is about, I mean, when Dana-Farber and Brigham and Women's came out here, they were doing what we were trying to do is basic. It's the community needs. Patients want to have treatment in their community. The population is getting older. It's harder and harder. You know, children are working.
Well, I mean, it's a serious thing if I've got to go in every day or every other day
right.
to bring my parents, or God forbid, my children or darling bride somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Having something as close as the Dana-Farber building here, one, it's got to drop the tension because I'm not fighting traffic for a half hour, an hour.
Right.
Right.
You know, but two, just practical. You can't afford.
Yep.
You know, but that's got to be a big decision for, you know, the Brigham. I mean, that's a lot of money that they're looking to invest again.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you're running one machine that many hours a day, and again, from an operational standpoint, something we think about every day, you've got to have backup plans. So you can't be dependent on one machine. So there's an experience level that tells you when you get to this point, you need to add a
But
second
still,
unit.
it's a vote that
Sure.
the business is going to continue.
They're busy.
Because this is not a $10,000, $20,000 investment
No.
that they can arbitrarily say, we'll give it a try.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so the fact that they're willing to invest that much really speaks heads and tails
Right.
above.
Yeah.
So we're all done building. We're now take a rest. We don't have to think about the
I don't think
future.
we're ever done building.
We've been there before, and it hasn't kind of come through. But you know, I think part of it is we're really trying to catch our breath. I think that the thing that we haven't really talked about is, you know, the team at Milford Regional and Tri-County that when things were hard last year, we had talked earlier that, you know, mid-year it looked pretty serious that we were projecting a $9 million loss. And, you know, really the team pulled together, and I mean across the board. We've mentioned Tri-County in opening capacity, but really at every level of the hospital, it was all hands on deck to say, you know, how can I help? And you know, we made some difficult changes at the hospital, and our employees stepped up, and it's something that's always on my mind in terms of you know, there's certain benefits that we've suspended, and we're always concerned about staying competitive in the market. So while we're doing better, it's really a qualified doing better, And so we are still trying to catch our breath. At the same time, the whole healthcare industry is a little upside down. At the federal level, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's compounded by a significant federal deficit in growing Medicare budget. And then at the state level, there's been really a significant, and particularly recently, significant growth in the Medicaid enrollees without any money. So how does that add up? But at the same time, for years, I think Phil and I always talk about it doesn't add up. All we can do is take good care of patients, and that, that's been really our recipe here. And we've really, I mean, our success has largely been the growth. But again, it's a contribution if you're doing it at Milford versus a higher level center.
But Ed, you're getting hit twice. I mean, if you think about it, the age of our population is increasing. And when does all the real costs come in? Not when and it's not my daughter at 25.
Right.
It's me at 60, my mom at 93.
Yeah.
So that keeps going up. And you sit there and say, okay, if I'm on the federal level, I can go after these rich doctors in these overly profitable hospitals first. So you get hit with both. It's not like you're running a hospital and the physicians, have to grin and bear it. When they cut back on the CPT codes on assays, we noticed right away, okay, we got to automate a little bit more. So we'd automate as far as we could, but,
Well, that's why you really have to, and we've talked about it, you have to deliver care in the right setting. So, that's why we have urgent care, for example, because that's a lower cost setting. Ed mentioned our tertiary partners, and we have good tertiary partners, and they've often said to us, what should be done in a community hospital or a local hospital should stay local. And so, to Ed's point earlier, you don't want to do an appendix in Boston. So those are the kind of things, our physicians work hard at preventative care and wellness and educating patients. And then we have, within the group, we're doing a lot in behavioral health. So we have a child psychiatrist, and as a team, we have a child psychiatrist, a psych nurse practitioner, and a social worker as kind of one group for pediatrics. We just brought on an adult psychiatrist, Dr. Kim Levitt, and she's actually going to be in Hopkinton, and we'll have a team with her as well. We're co-locating, therapists in most of our adult sites. We have an arrangement with Wayside Counseling to have a therapist in our PD sites. So you're trying, behavior health is another huge expense. Not a huge expense, it's a huge concern because there's a ton of issues which can result in all kinds of illnesses and comorbidities, et cetera. So, you have to direct your kid to prevent illness rather than just, saying we're going to pay you less. The same thing, with, we have 3 RNs on our staff. And, we've identified what we consider high-risk patients. And each RN has 2 high-risk patients. And they work with that patient to manage the care, making sure they do go to their appointments, they're taking their medications, they're following up with specialists, they're touching base with them. They do the things that physicians, because of the time pressures, really can't get to. And so we actually brought on this past year 2 social workers, because a physician will get a very difficult patient who, doesn't have resources, doesn't know where to go for care. You need someone to really kind of manage that care. So we've had social workers who will intercede and manage the care.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things, on the behavioral side that we're trying to do. And we're also trying to put, care in the right setting. So that's in terms of healthcare reform, that's what we're trying to get to. So.
Well, but the $7 million that we lost last year, that, rumor on the street is that's because we expanded. But that wasn't the big chunk of that.
So it was a combination of things.
Yeah.
It was expansion, and we didn't hit what we thought we needed to fund.
Yeah,
that
a mere
extra.
6% growth instead of 10.
Right.
Okay.
Reimbursement changes, just.
But see, that's what I'm getting to. When they start cutting back,
Yeah.
I remember when we had the lab, when they cut back the CPT code, it meant I'm doing 10,000 of these assays. I used to get $1 a piece. I'd get 10 grand.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting 7,500. And after a while, there was only so much you could automate, and it just ate at your profitability. And I had a feeling that we got hit with that too. It wasn't just the big hospitals in town.
Right.
That, we're having to do more for less,
Yeah.
or more efficiently.
I mean, there is pressure to be efficient out there, and we have patient-centered medical homes, and again, it's a proactive kind of care where the patient is the focus. Okay, it's patient-centric, but there is that pressure. I mean, but you just you don't give up the battle, Al.
Right.
You almost kind of hunker down. You try to get the best rates you can contractually. You try to manage and be as efficient as you
But
possibly
a
can.
lot of this thing people don't understand. You read in the paper that you're turning away this plethora of children that were staying in the hospital. When I asked the question, it wasn't even a pleth. Was it one child a day?
Yeah,
Yeah,
again,
that's
another
a good topic,
challenging issue in lots of change. It's really an industry change versus a Milford change. A number of community hospitals have kind of, have already dealt with this. But our numbers, as I like to describe it, is we have about 10,000 pediatric emergency room visits every year. Between, kids can get very sick, but they recover
process
quickly.
those viruses real fast.
And again, with today's medicine and treatment, we have about 1,000 deliveries, and then we have a little over one average inpatient pediatric patient. And so the challenge, and some of this came up connected to the new building in terms of pediatric being isolated, is how do you staff for one pediatric patient?
But see, that's what I'm saying. People heard 10,000 children that you're turning away service for now.
Yeah.
And it's
No,
like,
that's not true. That's not true.
it's one. And you're not really even turning him
Right.
or her away.
No,
Right.
We're not turning them away.
We're not
That's
turning
Right.
away. So there's going to be some elective pediatric cases that we're going to screen out that are in that mix of one per day. But to be good at anything, you have to do it a lot. And so it's a real challenge on the inpatient side if you're not seeing a lot of volume to be good at that.
And Ed, if I am a top pediatric physician,
yeah.
and you tell me, even if you pay me, I'm going to see one patient a day, I'm not going to be real attracted to coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, why do we have a children's hospital?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we never took care of, and it's not really a community hospital's mission to take care of high-end sick children, partly because you need pediatric specialists, and really, we really have very few. So kids that come into our ED that are acutely ill are they're being stabilized and transferred very quickly. Again, usually the parent's choice, and it can be to Boston Children's Hospital, or it can be to Worcester, and a lot of that just has to do with geography. One thing, though, that we do, again, it's about the patient, is we have a terrific relationship with Boston Children's where a number of their specialists rotate out here. And so again, you'd be surprised, very young children that need to see specialists routinely. To be able to have a procedure done, so say GI, have a procedure done in Boston, but then to see that same physician here. Is terrific. And so Boston Children's, they've got a full-time pediatrician in the house all the time, and then a second doc here around half a day in the emergency department. So Boston Children's is not changing their relationship with ED. They're here. That's really big in terms of taking care of kids. So our message is, we're really the same hospital in terms of taking care.
You're still taking care of the
children.
kids.
Yeah, and there's a number of other community hospitals who are doing what we do,
Yeah.
and we've.
Well, and again, if you
so
look-
we've talked to other
if you're
hospitals,
looking
and they're
at
doing the
patient
same
care,
thing. Yeah.
I want a specialist. If I have
Sure.
something that you had to take my child out of Jeff Hopkins's hands, put it into an inpatient, boy, I don't want somebody who sees one kid a day. Just practice, just experience. So, to me, it wasn't even a financial issue. It was really, okay, we can't really afford it, but even if we could, for the better treatment of the patient.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to find staff and qualified staff. And of course, if you have patients, great. But if you don't have a patient, what do? You have to cancel those nurses. It's not very satisfying to be canceled frequently. So it's a challenge to staff, consistently with do you have a patient or don't you have a patient? And then, to be trained, and then, to be, keep a satisfied staff.
Yeah, if I'm a nurse, I want to be involved with patients.
Right.
Whether you pay me or not, sitting around trying to find something to do isn't very satisfying.
Yeah.
And I mean, realistically, my hat's off to you guys, because when I look at the environment you've created, we've got physicians that have been around forever. And it's your leadership that sets the environment.
Yeah, we have a great staff across the board.
Across the board, I was going to say the
terrific
same.
nursing staff, but really across it takes an entire team. I always say, managing a healthcare system, it's like managing a sports team. Every position matters, and so we really feel very, very fortunate.
But it takes leaders. I mean, you can say anything you want, but the Patriots don't have 2 superstars all the time. They may have 1, but somehow Belichick sets the environment that year after year, the players want to be there. He's able to recruit top players and get the best performance out of them. And I see the same thing. I can't tell you how grateful I am that you've set an environment for Dr. Mona. My mother knows this person. For 10 years after her cancer surgery, she's been taken care of by the same person. And it's not just one. I see it across the board when physicians come on here and, no, I've only been there 24 years. I mean, that says a lot.
Just to emphasize what Ed said, it does take a team, and we're lucky from medical staff, support staff, physicians, nursing.
Not taking anything away from the team. But somehow Belichick seems to have had a little bit to do with the success of the Patriots.
We have a lot of Tom Brady's, really, our whole staff.
So I thank you.
Oh, good.
And look forward to hearing in 6 months. When you come back, tell us about what new is happening, and maybe then what new building project you're looking at.
Al, it's always nice to be on. So
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
As always, it's amazing for people who've grown up with a little red building that somehow has grown into a medical facility that rivals all. I mean, it's so important when you do need any type of medical care that you don't have to go out of your own town. You can feel comfortable. It's our family, and for everybody from the medical center, thank you to the community, because without you, $25 million, it just baffles my mind that we raised that. So, as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, and maybe 1 or 2 in the ER that are bored, may tomorrow be a better night than tonight. May God bless, and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just